Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission this August 15th, 2017. We have 4 of 7 planning commissioners in attendance, so we do have a quorum. We excuse Commissioners Sikorsky, Green, and Quinney this evening. We have one item on our consent calendar, approval of minutes from August 1st, 2017. If any commissioner would like to take action on that. Commissioner Luthi.
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes with the exception that we talked about in the pre-meeting. The typo on page 7 that says R1-0 to R1-10.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Luthi and a second by Commissioner Hansen. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0, which brings us to our first public hearing on the agenda. Mega Motras LLC, 8945 South, 1300 West, conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales. And this is scheduled to be continued to September 15th, 2017, but would require a motion by the Planning Commission to do so. Commissioner Hansen.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we schedule Mega Motras LLC to our September 5th, 2017 meeting as a public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Commissioner Hansen and a second by Commissioner Luthi. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0. Next item on the agenda is Walker Tape, 9312 South Prosperity Road, a conditional use permit for manufacturing in the drinking water source protection overlay in an M1 zone. Walker Tape Company Incorporated, Robert Lowe is the applicant. Is he present this evening? Please come forward, Mr. Lowe, and if you have someone with you, if he could state his name too. Thank you.
I'm Robert Lowe, I'm the applicant, and this is Ryan Wismar. Ryan Wismar, one of the owners of Walker. So do you just want to hear a little bit about what we're doing?
Yes, please. Okay. Present your application on what you'd like us to consider.
Okay. So I'll defer to Ryan. So I smile because I know Dave. It's been a long time.
Yes.
My tennis coach a long time ago. So what would you like to know?
Well, please tell us exactly why you feel that this application should be approved, in your opinion.
So we've been in West Jordan since 1999, doing the same thing that we're doing now. Nothing's changed, except for we've upgraded the building where the chemicals are stored and processed. We're just growing and decided to build a new building. I don't know how many of you are aware, but when the initial paperwork was filed to get the approval before we built the building, I guess it was filed incorrectly, and that's what brings us here today, is it was filed under a storage facility and not a manufacturing facility. And so when our purpose the entire time was to be a manufacturing facility. Obviously, we're just moving literally one block west into our new building. So we just wanted to be here in case you guys had any other further questions or concerns, for us.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lowe or Mr. Wismar? Well, I have one. Are you still playing tennis?
I am. My shoulder's not as good as it used to be, but I still play. Do you still play?
I do.
Yeah? Do you still coach?
Yes.
I might need to come back to it again.
Well, thank you. And so in full disclosure, Mr. Wismar, as you mentioned, and I have a tennis connection, but how many years has it been?
16 years.
A long time, and so I don't see that would be a conflict of interest since I haven't seen him for this long. So, okay, thank you. We'll reserve some time for you if there's any public comment that you'd like to address. Thanks very much. Let's move to our city presentation by Mr. Forsyth.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So as the applicants kind of explained, they just recently finished construction of their new warehouse building just off of Prosperity Road. So what the business essentially entails is they're an adhesives manufacturing company, so they'll be storing a variety of different chemicals on site. So it's a little hard to see from the table up here, but there's 8 different types of chemicals that they'll have. Most of those are either going to be adhesives or some type of solvent. So, so all of these chemicals will be stored inside a fully enclosed building, which consists of a warehouse and a little bit of office space just in the corner. So the surrounding area, everything in this area is zoned M1 which is a light manufacturing zone, and in which manufacturing is actually a permitted use normally. But because there's a few water wells in that area, this area is part of a 15-year time of travel zone that's part of the drinking source protection overlay. So a conditional use permit is required by city code to make sure that those wells are being protected and the groundwater is not going to be contaminated. So as far as the well itself, you can kind of see that on the map as the dark blue circle. That's about a quarter mile away. So there should be quite a bit of distance between the site and that well. So in looking at the site itself, this area is it's fully paved. The area, you can kind of see that on the site plan, but the entire perimeter around that parking lot and the drive aisles, that's all bordered by a curb and gutter. So in the event that any chemicals do escape the warehouse, it'll have that in place to protect the neighboring vacant property from any contamination. As for the building itself, like I said before, it's fully enclosed. All the flooring is solid concrete, so there shouldn't be any issues with stormwater contamination or anything like that. In fact, most of the chemicals, you can kind of see on here, but there's a bottling room just over in the southwest corner. Most of the chemicals should be stored inside that room, which has been inspected by the fire department and the building and safety department for containing large amounts of chemicals. So this can typically store up to about 10,000 gallons. The applicant's only proposing about half that. So, and in addition to a lot of the built-in precautions with the building itself, the applicant submitted a spill prevention and pollution control plan, which essentially goes over all the procedures for spill cleanup for both small, large, and medium spills. It lists contact information, what's contained in spill kits, that sort of things. So based on these findings and those explained in the staff report, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit for Walker Tape located at 9312 South Prosperity Road with the conditions of approval listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, being the building is already existing and that, is there a landscaping plan?
There is. That was submitted and approved at the time of site plan review, so that's already been reviewed by the city.
Any other questions? This was noticed as a public hearing, so we'll open up that section of the meeting now. If anyone would like to comment on Walker Tape, item number 3 on the agenda, please feel welcome to come forward at this time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion among the planning commissioners. Commissioner Luthi.
Based off the discussion today as well as the staff report, I don't think that there's any reason that this can't move forward. So I'm going to make a motion that based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit for Walker Tape to operate an adhesive manufacturing business in the drinking water source protection overlay on property located at 9312 South Prosperity Road, subject to the conditions of the approval listed on page 6 of the staff report.
Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Luthi and a second by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0. Thank you for doing business in West Jordan, and best wishes to you. Brings us to our last item on the agenda tonight, Zander Rezone, 7347 South, 3200 West, rezone 1.04 acres from RR1B, Rural Residential 1 Acre Lots Zone, to R114F, Single Family Residential 14,000 square foot lots Zone. Jason and Amy Zander are the applicants, and I believe they're here this evening. At least I saw the signatures coming in. So please feel welcome to come forward and present your application.
Thank you for allowing us to comment on this. This is the quickest meeting I've ever been to. Nobody will contribute to it.
We try to be efficient. So.
Wonderful. Okay, well, as the application states, we would like to apply for a rezone of our property. We're currently on a 1 acre lot. We're applying for a rezone of an R114F. This is for the purpose of creating a building lot in the back of our property where we've had a vacant field for some time. We've owned this property and lived there for about 10 years now. And as the kids are getting older, getting ready for college, we thought this may be a good time to sell a building lot.
Great, thank you. Anything that you'd like to add, Ms. Zander? All right. Any questions for the applicant this evening from the planning commissioners? We'll reserve some time for you then to address any questions or concerns that may arise in the public comment section. Thank you for your time. And Mr. Gardner, you have this item for the city?
Yes, and as Mr. Zander said, the property they own is on the corner of 3200 West and 7325 South, both public streets. It's a 1 acre lot that was platted with the Troster Acre subdivision probably 40 years ago. As you can see on the zoning map on the left, there's around this area there is quite a collection of different zoning. There's RR1, there's R18 to the south, there's RR20 across the streets, R110, but they're all single family and all compatible with one another. What the Zanders, as he stated, would like to do is rezone this to an R114 lot. However, when the property is subdivided, it will probably be larger than a 14,000 square foot lot. That would be the minimum lot size. The access, if it's subdivided, would be off of 7325 South. And so it really would be isolated to that corner. It would not encroach into the neighborhood to the east at all. The lot sizes would be somewhat similar to what's across to the south. The area is low-density residential on the city's future land use map, and R114 is compatible with that zoning. If you go through the criteria and the findings, staff has found that a single home will be compatible with what's already in the area. This aerial shows that lots of similar size across 3200 West, across 7325, larger. So there really is a good mix of lot sizes. However, they're all single-family homes, and the net of this zone change will be one additional home on this rear portion of the Zanders property if the zone change is approved. So based on that, staff finds that this would be compatible and that there are sufficient utilities to service any construction that is done there, and recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for this zone change. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Any questions? Oh, we will get to that in just one moment. We will certainly let you speak your mind. Thank you. Any questions for staff from the planning commissioners? Great, thank you. Well, now we will open up the meeting officially to public comment. If anyone has anything that he or she would like to say regarding Zander rezone, you're welcome to do so. You have 3 minutes in which to make your comments. And then if anyone else would like to speak after the initial person, if you have anything additional that you would like to add, please feel welcome to come up as well. We just strive to minimize repetitive comments, knowing that we can't bow to public clamor, but we want to make sure that all of the facts are presented to us that would be able to enable us to make the best decision for the city. So please feel welcome to come up at this point, and please state your name and address for the public record.
Hi, I'm Maria Anderson, and I live at 7325 South, 3100 West. And I was just barely made aware of this today at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I never received anything in the mail, and apparently none of my neighbors surrounding me did either. I am opposed to this. We moved into that area for the reason of larger lots. We don't want to have lots, and I think this will set a precedence to the other properties that are larger surrounding us. And I would like to know why I never received anything in the mail about this.
Good question. We will make sure we answer that at the end of the public comment section.
But I think this does set a precedence for other larger lots that want to do the same thing, and then we can just turn into a neighborhood like across the street. All of us want the bigger lots, the space between our neighbors. That's why we all moved there. And now there's this request for change that I had no idea of. I'm so glad somebody came and told me at 2 o'clock this afternoon so I could rearrange my schedule and be here. But that is my opinion. I'm really frustrated that I was not aware. And 14,000 square foot lot is considerably smaller than the rest of the lots in that area. I know you say it's compatible. Well, it is. But why can't it be a half acre like all of the others? If they want to split the lot, it should be a half acre. That's what we went through this a number of years ago in this same neighborhood. And it was an issue, and it changes things such as our rural status. I have a question about that. How do we find out about that? The last time this came up, it was curb and gutter, sidewalks that we would all have to pay for. There's irrigation in that area, it would affect the irrigation. How do I get these answers? Who do I go to?
You can call me tomorrow anytime.
You are?
Larry Gardner.
Gardner?
Yes. This is a public hearing. It's not necessarily a question and answer session.
I want to know where I can find out this information, and I'd like to know why I was not notified.
What's your address?
7215 South, 3100 West.
You probably are not, probably the reason you didn't receive a mail notice is you're not within 300 feet.
Well, these are half-acre lots. This is our neighborhood.
I'm sorry, ma'am, by state law, we're only required to mail notices within 300 feet, and it is published on the website, newspaper, and on the city's website. But we're only required to notice neighbors within 300 feet. That's the reason you didn't get a notice. That may not be satisfactory to you, but that is the reason that you're probably...
It's not, because I'm part of that neighborhood. So, and there's only one way into that neighborhood and one way out. So it does affect everyone on that 3100, going north and south. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I will call you tomorrow and find out, ask the answer to the questions that you can answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? A reminder to please state your name and address for the public record.
Eric Samansky, 3162 West, 7325 South.
Thank you.
I live directly across the street from the proposed new lot. I don't want to offend my friends the Zanders. I've been their neighbor for 10 years, and they have been very good neighbors to keep the weeds down. That being said, I would prefer to have another house there with good neighbors than to have a weed mown empty lot. I do have concerns. I do share the concern about the nature of the community as far as the curb and gutter goes, and as far as any effect on the animal rights, large animal rights of any of the neighbors. I just want to make sure that those are protected. If there's a way around those obstacles, I am 100% in favor of having another neighbor as opposed to a weed-filled lot.
Thank you.
Alan Puro, 7378 South, 3100 West. As my neighbor briefly touched on, we are a cul-de-sac subdivision. On each end of 3100 West is high density, very small lots. Anyone who lives in this neighborhood and knows that if there is a yard sale or anything up on 7325, access is extremely restricted into and out of our cul-de-sac neighborhood. We also are limited down to, we have 3 fire hydrants. They are also on the end of a feed. We had a problem a number of years ago. West Jordan responded very promptly to empty fire hydrants because we are on the end of a feed. We do not have direct feed because this started out as Trossiter Acres. It was designed to be acres. A few years ago, north of 7325 did go to half acres. It maintained the rural residential. I bought where I did because at the time I had horses. I still have animals on it. Zoning down to an R114 takes away those. That camel's nose starts in the 10. Somebody doesn't like Joe's horses. He lives on the corner lot on it, starts to pressure. We see our quality of life degraded that we bought there for. The neighbor straight to the end of 7325, Mike, he can't be here. He's the South Salt Lake Fire Department fireman, and he's working tonight, so he couldn't be here. His neighbor to the south of him, Mark, they bought for the exact same reasons. They have large animals. We have the right. My biggest concern is a safety issue. We're bottlenecking 7325. As it stands right now, there are 4 houses on the north that enter out onto that property. This would add a 5th. That is a narrow 2-lane. It isn't even striped. It doesn't meet the requirements for stripes on it because it is a rural residential road. That's why we bought there. Now, as we told the Zanders at a meeting at their home, we've got no problem because there is precedence for it, north of 7325, to go to half-acre rural residential. His lot is feasible for that. He wants 3rd acre for one reason and one reason only. He does not want to lose his shop. It could actually be a slight pie cut and maintain the half-acre. The property would actually be valuable because it would have animal rights. It loses it at a 3rd acre. This is not a good mix for our community. At a meeting at the Zander residence, the immediate neighbors around expressed that to him. We bought here for a reason. He expressed to us he bought where he did so he could divide and make money on it. That's not why I bought there. I have a perfect rectangle. I could go to a half-acre and I could actually increase the property values of both of my properties. That's not why I bought it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to address this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and invite the applicant back up if both of you would like to come up and address any questions or concerns raised in the public comment section.
All right, thank you. Yeah, a couple items. I apologize to the woman who didn't get notification of this because she does live outside that 300-foot radius of the proposed rezone. In fact, back in the end of May, we invited everybody to our home that lived within this 300-foot radius and discussed the possibility. There was a cluster of residents in that block that would have the possibility of subdividing if it were all rezoned. And Al was one of those that was in favor to subdivide to half acres. Now, as Al mentioned, our issue with rezoning to a half acre is we would lose our shop that's in the back of the yard. And we explored creative ways of subdividing that we could retain that, but then it would leave us with about 5 feet of backyard. So that wasn't feasible. The way we intend to subdivide would have the same width of the minimum requirement of a half acre, 100 feet. We just wouldn't have the depth to get us to 20,000 square feet. It would end up about 18,000. So we wouldn't go as small as the minimum requirement, but that zoning is what would allow it to subdivide a lot that would be comparable to those right across the street. It would look like a half an acre. It wouldn't be as deep. And it would, in fact, lose animal rights. This house was built in 1968, and not once in that time has it had large animals on it. We haven't in 10 years. We don't intend to. We love the fact that there are horses and whatnot nearby in the neighborhood that our kids can walk to and see, but that isn't something that interests us. So in that meeting we determined, okay, we're not in a consensus where a group of us will go in together and rezone. We'll just focus on our property only, and it shouldn't change the look and feel of the neighborhood except for adding that one home. But the lot size should look very similar to what's across the street, and the home would be similar to those newer homes as well.
Ms. Zander, anything?
I think you covered it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let's ask, Mr. Gardner, thank you very much for addressing a couple of these concerns, and understandably, for more detail to ensure that residents get answers to all their questions. They're welcome to call, but I want to make sure that we don't defer or make it seem like we're putting them off. So curious, do you have a pen handy by chance? Or the specific concerns that I heard raised that we want to make sure we get at least a little bit of information on. Ideas on why this couldn't be a half-acre lot, the rural status, and the 300-foot radius, 7215 south, 3100 west, is a little bit outside that. That is a state mandate?
No, that's a West Jordan
City mandate.
What state law allows. Cities don't even have to do neighbor notices. The state of Utah allows that as an option. West Jordan has chose to. And so by ordinance, West Jordan City has adopted a 300-foot rule to mail neighbor notices. Some communities do 1,000 feet, which becomes onerous, and you notify a whole bunch of people that aren't even connected to a neighborhood. However, the standard notice that I've been associated most is 300 feet, and so that has become kind of the benchmark. And simply, these meetings and these agendas are noticed 4 different ways. Now, I know that it's not most people's hobbies to get onto city website and peruse planning commission agendas. However, be that as it may, they're noticed plenty of different ways. Neighbor notices are generally thought to be those people that are mostly abutting or closely adjacent to properties that would be affecting them mostly. As far as the rural residential, the only rural residential lot that would be changing is the applicant's. The rest of the rest of the other people's property, with the exception of the end of 3100 West, which is an R110 zone, would remain rural residential. There'd be no loss of animal rights. They are not giving up anything. As far as precedent, I've heard that a lot in my career, but precedent, these applications are taken on a case-by-case basis. That has no bearing on what could occur farther into the neighborhood. Though there may be legitimate concerns on a different parcel of property on 3000 West opposed to 3200 West. And so that is a common concern. They feel like once planning commissions and city councils do something, they're bound they are not. They're a case-by-case basis. They go through the same criteria that's in the ordinance. They go on a staff recommendation, however, they can vary from that. And so I'm not trying to shoot holes in their arguments. I'm just telling you what I've seen, the precedents. And Duncan, you may be able to back me up on this, but there's really no legitimate concern because it's not, I've never seen it where, well, this person did it, so we're going to do it for this person. So,
Mr. Murray?
Yeah, so state law does indicate that every parcel of property is unique. So that's correct. There is no legal precedent set. A planning commission could recommend and a council could easily approve one piece of property and deny another one right next to it, as long as there's any rational basis for it. So for all intents and purposes, there's no precedent for zone changes.
Thank you. And then you addressed animal rights. Recognizing this is the rezone, it's not a final plat, curb and gutter, dry fire hydrant, traffic study, all of that would be done at a later date.
yes, dry fire hydrants are a huge concern, and I'm sure Paul they've addressed that issue. But yes, all those other issues would be addressed at the subdivision of the property, not at the land use portion. So.
Thank you. Mr. Brockbank, anything you'd like to say about that with the dry fire hydrant issue?
About the only thing I could say is I will go out there and turn them on and make sure we got water.
Great.
That'll be done by the end of the week.
Well, thank you very much. And I would just mention this is something that we see all the time as planning commissioners, and I know it's a heart-wrenching one, the right of the property owner versus the right of the adjacent property owners. And we want to make sure we do things objectively instead of subjectively. There's a difference between some quasi-legislative action and quasi-judicial, meaning as planning commissioners, we are autonomous, even though we're appointed by the city council, but we're beholden to go by the findings of facts that are objective with no favoritism or prejudice. We don't rubber stamp, but what I would say is no matter what happens this evening, we appreciate everyone coming out, and the next step would be to share these same arguments in front of City Council because they have much more latitude in their position than we do in ours. Would that be an accurate statement, Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's bring it to discussion among the planning commissioners. Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to speak with our planner. The lady that came up and wasn't noticed due to the fact that she doesn't live within the 300 radius, but is going to call you. Maybe you could inform her as to when this will be in front of the City Council so that she can come and present her views at that time, because they are the decision makers. So,
I have no problem doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, yes, because understandably the larger the lot, 300 feet doesn't cover quite as many people. Great. Any other discussion? Commissioner Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to commend the Zanders for their outreach to the community and talking with their neighbors and trying to find a resolution prior to bringing this before the Planning Commission. I think that is a very warm neighborly gesture, and I think your neighbors probably appreciate it. We do as well, because it sends a message that you're going to work with us as well as your neighbors. So, and I think the idea of taking an empty lot that's weed infested or even just dry weed is a much better use of land than is to have a home on it is much better use of the land. So thank you.
Any other comments, discussion, or I'll entertain a motion? Commissioner Hanson.
I'd like to make a motion, if that is all right.
Of course, please.
Based on the analysis and findings contained in the staff report, staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to rezone 1.04 acres from RR-1B rural residential 1-acre lots zone to R114F single-family residential 14,000 square foot lots on the property located at 7347 South, 3200 West.
Thank you. And just for point of clarification, when you're mentioning staff recommends, is that is your motion, though?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hatch.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Hatch. Any discussion to that motion? Commissioner Luthi.
I'd just like to add that the reason that it's moving forward with a positive recommendation, because I will agree that it should move forward, has to do with the criteria laid out there, and I think it might be beneficial to just read them aloud so that everybody's aware of what we're looking at and what we're judging this on.
Please, yes, full disclosure. Thank you.
The criteria number 1 says that the proposed amendment is considered with the purposes, goals, objectives, and policies of the city's general plan. As it was pointed out, this is low-density residential. Being at the 3rd acre lot versus the half-acre lot versus the 1 acre, it's still all considered at the low-density residential. So nothing's being played at. You're not getting a higher density, even though you're getting a higher density. So that's the criteria number 1 that we were looking at. Criteria number 2 was the results in compatible land use relationships and does not adversely affect the adjacent properties. And I completely understand what you're saying about this being a cul-de-sac neighborhood, that it's got 1 feed. I'm not sure 1 house is going to be as dramatic to upset that 1 feed, however. The next criteria was the proposed amendment furthers the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city. I don't see anything in here where it would adversely affect that. Criteria 4, the proposed amendment will not unduly impact the adequacy of public services and facilities intended to serve the subject zoning area and property than otherwise would be needed without the proposed changes, such as but not limited to police, fire protection, water, sewer, and roadways. And this will be addressed, as was discussed earlier, as we go through site plan review to make sure that there isn't a case of we don't have enough fire protection or we don't have enough water protection, and it'll end up being put on the land developer, which I'm assuming will be you guys or somebody you hire out to do this. And it won't go through if there's not adequate, if they find that there's not enough fire to be able to serve 1 more person, you don't get another person unless they want to do the upgrades to get the other person. So I think we're covered on that one. The last one on here is the proposed amendment is consistent with provisions of any applicable overlay zoning districts that may impose additional standards, and the understanding is that there isn't any. So that's all we have to be able to make our recommendation move forward, is based off of those 5 findings. Again, I highly encourage you to come plead your case in front of the City Council, as they have a little bit more leeway. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion to the motion? Time to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 4-0, which ends our agenda for the evening. Any other comments from city staff for any upcoming events besides the reminder of the Joint Planning Commission City Council meeting on the 29th of August?
Other than that, and like I promised you, Scott's working with the city recorder on getting an agenda. I don't know if, Julie, if you've heard anything about that, but it's usually, since it is a meeting with the council, it would be her that would send the agenda out. Now, I'm certainly we just an electronic agenda. I don't know if she sends them to the planning commission or if you'll have to forward that to the. And so either way, there won't be any type of staff packet or staff report, but you will get an agenda. I do know that Envision Utah is coming for a few minutes, and then Scott is leaving some time open to talk about the concerns that that you talked to him about in your phone call, and so and it will be held in this room, or is it down in the community room? Do you know?
I would think community room, so we all have a round table discussion, probably.
So anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Anything else? All right. Well, then a reminder for August 29th, and then our next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting would be Tuesday, September 5th. Any motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Any objection to that motion? We stand adjourned.